When was the last time your doctor sat across from you and talked about water? Not your A1C, not your medication dosage, not your carbohydrate intake, just water. If your answer is never, you're not alone, and that gap in the conversation might be costing you more than you realize. Here's what stopped me in my tracks years ago. I was reviewing the blood work and glucose logs of two patients. Same age, same diagnosis, type 2 diabetes. Same medication. Both were following nearly identical diets, but one had an A1C of 7.1 and the other was sitting at 8.9. A full 0.8 of a point separating two people who, on paper, were living the same life. I went through everything: sleep, stress levels, meal timing, exercise. And then I found it. One patient was consistently, intentionally hydrated. The other was running on coffee, a glass of juice, and whatever liquid happened to come with dinner. That one discovery permanently changed how I counsel every senior patient who walks into my practice. My name is Dr. Graham, and I've spent years in preventive medicine working specifically with older adults managing metabolic conditions like type 2 diabetes. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how something as accessible and free as water, when used correctly, can meaningfully shift the way your body handles blood sugar. Not with gimmicks, not with expensive supplements. With a science-backed strategy you can start implementing tomorrow morning. Stay with me, because we're going to go deeper than drink 8 glasses a day. That advice is outdated, oversimplified, and honestly, not doing you any real favors. What I'm about to share is different. It's specific, and it works. Before I get into the actual method, I want to tell you about a hormone most people have never heard of. One that quietly sabotages blood sugar control in dehydrated seniors every single day. I'll get to it in just a few minutes. But first, I need you to understand what's happening inside your body as you age. Because once you see it clearly, everything else I share today will click into place immediately. The physiology of why seniors struggle more after 60. Your body's relationship with blood sugar becomes genuinely more complicated as you age. Even if you're disciplined, even if you're compliant, even if you're doing everything your care team has asked. Here's why. First, insulin resistance typically increases with age. Your cells don't respond to insulin signals the way they used to. Glucose knocks on the door, so to speak, and your cells are slower to answer. That's the first layer of the problem. Second, your pancreatic beta cells, the ones that actually produce insulin, gradually become less efficient. So you're producing less of the hormone that manages blood sugar, and your cells are ignoring more of what you do produce. That's a double challenge. Two independent problems stacking on top of each other at the exact same time. Third, and this is the piece almost nobody talks about, your hypothalamus, the region of the brain that tells you when you're thirsty, becomes significantly less sensitive with age. Research published in the Journal of Gerontology has confirmed that older adults show a substantially blunted thirst response compared to younger adults, even when their bodies are clinically dehydrated. What this means practically: you can be running on a significant fluid deficit and feel completely fine. No dry mouth, no obvious discomfort, just quietly, visibly dehydrated. And that's the trap. Because your body doesn't send you the alarm signal it used to send. The warning light is broken and the engine is still running hot. And that brings me to the hormone I mentioned earlier, the vasopressin link, the hidden saboteur. When your body senses dehydration, it releases a hormone called vasopressin, also called antidiuretic hormone, or ADH. Its job is to tell your kidneys to hold on to water. Completely normal response. Your body is trying to protect you. But here's where it gets interesting for anyone managing blood sugar. Research from INSERM, the French National Institute of Health, published in Diabetes Care, found that higher copeptin levels, the measurable marker of vasopressin activity, were significantly associated with higher fasting blood glucose and an increased risk of developing type 2 diabetes. What that means in plain language: the more dehydrated you are, the more vasopressin your body pumps out. And elevated vasopressin appears to directly stimulate the liver to release stored glucose into the bloodstream. Your liver essentially gets a signal saying, emergency mode, release sugar, even if you haven't eaten anything, even in the middle of the night. This is why so many of my patients have unexplained fasting spikes and erratic morning numbers that seem completely disconnected from what they ate the evening before. They went to bed slightly dehydrated. Vasopressin rose. The liver released glucose. and they woke up confused, frustrated, and blaming their dinner. This is not a character flaw. This is physiology, and understanding it gives you real power to change it. I want to tell you about Dorothy. She was 71 when I met her, sharp, determined, and genuinely one of the most disciplined patients I've ever worked with. She had been managing type 2 diabetes for 11 years. Her diet was immaculate. She exercised 5 mornings a week, light resistance training, and a 25-minute walk. She took her medication without fail. But her morning fasting glucose was all over the place. One day, 148. The next day, 179. 3 days around 155. Then a random spike to 191 with no obvious cause. And she was doing everything right. Everything. Which is exactly why her case fascinated me. When I asked Dorothy about her fluid intake in detail, she told me something that immediately caught my attention. I don't drink much in the evening, she said, because if I do, I'm up 3 or 4 times a night using the bathroom. And at my age, that's just not safe. That made complete sense to her. But here's what was happening biologically. By the time Dorothy went to bed, she was already mildly dehydrated from a long day of light activity and limited fluid intake. Her vasopressin surged overnight. Her liver responded, and her morning number reflected it every single time. Now, before I tell you how we fixed it, before I show you the exact redistribution that turned her chaos into consistency, you need to understand the 3 mistakes that were compounding in her routine. Because Dorothy wasn't making one mistake, she was making 3 of them at once. And I see the exact same 3 in senior patients every single week. Here's the thing about these mistakes. They don't feel like mistakes. They feel like reasonable choices. They feel like the sensible thing to do. That's what makes them so dangerous. And that's what we're going to break down next. Let me walk you through the 3 most damaging hydration habits I see repeatedly in my senior patients. If you're managing blood sugar, any one of these could be quietly working against you. And here's the uncomfortable part. Most of them feel completely harmless. That's what makes them so dangerous. Mistake number 1, treating coffee as hydration. I know. You love your coffee. I'm not going to take it away. But here's the reality. Caffeine has a mild diuretic effect, meaning it actually encourages your kidneys to excrete more fluid. For most healthy adults, the effect is modest. But here's the part nobody talks about. If you're already starting your day in a fluid deficit after 7 or 8 hours of sleep, and you are, everyone is, and the first liquid that hits your system is a diuretic, you're digging yourself deeper into dehydration before the day has even really started. Coffee does not hydrate. It contributes to dehydration when it replaces water. Not when it accompanies it, when it replaces it. And for a senior whose thirst mechanism is already blunted, that first cup of coffee can be the difference between a well-hydrated morning and a day spent running on fumes. I'm not telling you to give up coffee. I'm telling you to stop counting it as water. Because your body certainly isn't. Mistake number 2, drinking large volumes all at once to catch up. Many of my patients go most of the day without adequate fluids, then drink 2 or 3 large glasses of water in the evening, trying to make up for it. It seems logical. If I miss the water during the day, I'll just catch up at night. But your body doesn't work like a bank account. You can't deposit 8 hours of missed hydration in a single transaction. The problem is that your body has a limited absorption rate. Research suggests the gut can absorb roughly 200 to 300 milliliters of water per 15-minute window before the excess simply passes through to the bladder. Flooding the system doesn't hydrate your cells. It just floods your bladder. And it's precisely the kind of evening drinking that causes the nighttime bathroom trips seniors are trying so hard to avoid. You're not solving the hydration problem. You're creating a safety problem. You're trading one issue for another, and both of them are working against you. The irony is painful. The very people who avoid water to protect themselves from nighttime falls are the same people who are most dehydrated. And dehydration itself is a leading contributor to falls, dizziness, and cognitive fog in older adults. The avoidance becomes the cause of the thing they're avoiding. Mistake number 3, ignoring electrolytes. This is the one that surprises almost everyone. Plain water alone doesn't hydrate your cells optimally. Your cells use a balance of sodium, potassium, and magnesium to pull water across the cellular membrane through a process called osmosis. Without those electrolytes in balance, water can pass through your digestive system without fully entering the cells that need it. This is especially relevant for seniors, who are more prone to electrolyte imbalances and who are often on medications like diuretics that further deplete these minerals. Drinking water without supporting electrolyte balance is like watering a garden with cracked soil. Most of it runs off before it ever reaches the roots. So here's the picture now. You've got a blunted thirst signal telling you everything is fine. You've got coffee replacing water at the start of the day. You've got evening catch-up floods that never actually hydrate your cells. And you've got water that's passing through without delivering what your cells need. 4 separate problems, all invisible, all compounding. And the result? Blood that's slightly thicker than it should be. Glucose that moves more slowly from your bloodstream into your cells. Readings that climb for reasons that have nothing to do with what you ate. And a body that's fighting you in ways you can't see or feel. But here's the good news. Every single one of these problems has a fix. And they all share one elegant solution that I've developed in my practice over years of working with seniors managing blood sugar. I call it the FLOW method. Each letter stands for one foundational principle. And before I reveal what those letters mean, I want you to understand something important about why this method works where generic advice fails. Generic advice says, drink 8 glasses a day. It doesn't tell you when. It doesn't tell you how. It doesn't tell you what to add. It doesn't tell you why the timing matters more than the volume. It treats water like a volume problem. But water is a timing problem, a distribution problem, a composition problem. The FLOW method addresses all 3. And here's the part that genuinely excites me as a physician. The first letter of the method targets the single most powerful window in your entire day. The window that determines whether your morning glucose reading is a source of confusion or a source of confidence. It's a window most people sleep right through, completely unaware of what's happening inside their body while they do. I'm talking about the first 10 minutes after you wake up. Now, before I show you exactly what to do in that window, I need to tell you about something called the circadian insulin rhythm, and about a phenomenon that has been sabotaging morning blood sugar readings for decades, long before any of us understood what was happening. It's called the dawn phenomenon. And if you've ever woken up to a fasting glucose number that made no sense, this is the piece you've been missing. Because here's what most people don't realize. The reason your morning number is high isn't always about what you ate the night before. Sometimes it's about what your body decided to do on its own, in the dark, while you were sleeping. And once you understand that, once you see the mechanism clearly, you'll never look at a morning glucose reading the same way again. That's exactly where we're headed next, into the first letter of the method, and the 10-minute window that can change everything. Let's start with the F in FLOW. F stands for front load your fluids. Your body's insulin sensitivity is naturally highest in the morning, during what researchers call the circadian insulin rhythm. This is the window when your body is most capable of using glucose efficiently. And it's also the window when most seniors are at their most dehydrated, after a full night's sleep. Think about what you just learned. Your cells are most receptive to glucose in the morning. But your blood is also at its thickest, most dehydrated state in the morning. 2 opposing forces colliding at the exact same moment. And the winner of that collision determines your fasting reading. Now, let me introduce the dawn phenomenon, because this is where it gets genuinely fascinating. In the early morning hours, usually between roughly 2 and 8 a.m., your body begins to release a surge of hormones: growth hormone, cortisol, and epinephrine. These hormones tell your liver to release glucose. This is not a malfunction. This is your body preparing you to wake up. It's the metabolic equivalent of an alarm clock. Your body is stocking your bloodstream with fuel so you have energy to start the day. For a young, healthy person, insulin handles this morning surge easily. The glucose is quietly moved into cells, and the fasting reading stays flat. But for a senior with reduced insulin sensitivity and less efficient beta cells, that morning glucose release is harder to manage. Add dehydration on top of it, which raises vasopressin, which tells the liver to release even more glucose, and you have a perfect storm. Your body is releasing glucose for 2 reasons at once. The dawn phenomenon says, release glucose to wake up. The dehydration signal says, release glucose because we're in emergency mode. And your insulin, already struggling, can't keep up with either one, let alone both. That's the hidden engine behind so many confusing morning numbers. And it explains why 2 people can eat the exact same dinner, go to bed at the exact same time, and wake up with completely different fasting readings. The food isn't the variable, the hydration is. So here's what the F step does. Within 10 minutes of waking, before your coffee, before your phone, before anything else, Drink 1 full glass of warm water, approximately 300 to 350 milliliters. That's roughly 12 ounces. Add a small pinch of unrefined sea salt, just what you'd balance on a fingertip, and the juice of half a lemon. Now let me explain why each component matters, because this is not random wellness advice. This is physiology. The sea salt provides sodium, potassium, and trace magnesium to activate cellular uptake of the water. Remember the electrolyte problem we talked about? This is the fix, built directly into the morning routine. The salt creates the osmotic gradient that pulls the water into your cells instead of letting it pass straight through. The lemon contributes vitamin C, which supports insulin receptor function. And it creates a slightly acidic pH in the stomach that may help blunt the blood sugar response to your first meal of the day. It's a small effect, but it compounds. And the warm temperature, ideally between 40 and 45 degrees Celsius, or about 105 to 113 degrees Fahrenheit, keeps your blood vessels gently dilated, supporting better insulin circulation first thing in the morning. This single habit tackles two of the biggest drivers of morning blood sugar spikes simultaneously: overnight dehydration and the cortisol-driven dawn phenomenon. You're not just drinking water, you're strategically interrupting the exact mechanism that produces those confusing fasting numbers. Now, I want to be honest with you about something. When I first started recommending this to patients, I expected pushback. I expected eye rolls. A pinch of salt and lemon water, doctor? Really? But here's what I learned. The patients who tried it for 2 weeks didn't come back complaining. They came back with their glucose logs. And the pattern was unmistakable. The morning spike didn't vanish overnight, but it flattened. It became more predictable. And predictability is the foundation of control. You cannot manage what you cannot predict. Here's the other thing that surprised me. Many of my patients reported that their energy changed. Not dramatically, but noticeably. That heavy, sluggish feeling in the first hour after waking, the one they'd blamed on age for years, started to lift. Because they weren't just drinking water, they were rehydrating their blood before asking it to do the hardest work of the day. But here's the critical piece I need you to understand. The F step is powerful on its own, but it's only one letter. And if you stop here, you'll get maybe 30% of the benefit. Because the morning glass addresses the overnight deficit, but it doesn't address what happens over the course of the entire day. That's where the second letter comes in. And this is the letter that most people get wrong, because it's the opposite of what feels natural. It's about learning to drink less at once and more often. It's about turning a flood into a trickle. And here's the surprising part. This second letter is the one that fixed Dorothy's nighttime problem. Not by drinking more in the evening, but by drinking differently during the day. The answer to her bathroom trips wasn't less water. It was better distributed water. That's the L in flow. And it might be the single most underappreciated habit in all of diabetes care. The L in flow stands for layer your intake throughout the day. Rather than drinking in large, sporadic bursts, you distribute your fluid intake in small, consistent layers throughout your waking hours. Think of it like drip irrigation. Small amounts, consistently delivered, achieve far better saturation than an occasional flood. A garden watered with a gentle drip thrives. A garden hit with a fire hose once a day washes away. Here's a practical system. Keep a 16-ounce bottle visible and accessible. Not in the cabinet, not in the fridge. Visible. On your counter, on your desk, next to your chair. The visibility is part of the strategy because your thirst signal is blunted. You can't rely on your body to remind you. So you build the reminder into your environment. Finish one bottle by mid-morning, another by early afternoon, another by late afternoon. Ideally, finishing it by 5 p.m. if nighttime bathroom trips are a concern for you. Now here's the physiology behind why this works. This approach maintains your plasma volume, the fluid portion of your blood, at a stable level throughout the day, which keeps glucose transport smooth and consistent. When your blood is at optimal volume, glucose moves efficiently from your bloodstream into your cells. When you're even mildly dehydrated, blood becomes more viscous. It gets thicker. Glucose transport slows, and readings climb. This is the part that people find genuinely surprising. The difference between a good reading and a bad reading isn't always about what you ate. Sometimes it's about how thick your blood is at the moment you test it. And blood thickness is a hydration problem, a distribution problem. Let me bring Dorothy back into the picture, because this is exactly how we fixed her. We didn't ask Dorothy to guzzle water before bed. We were smarter than that. We redistributed her hydration throughout the day, front-loading her fluid intake in the morning and early afternoon, so that by 6 p.m., her body was already well hydrated. Her plasma volume was stable. Her vasopressin didn't surge overnight, and her liver didn't get the emergency signal to dump glucose. In 3 weeks, her fasting range narrowed to between 128 and 141. Consistent, predictable, for the first time in years. I feel like I cracked the code, she told me, and the answer was something she could literally get from her kitchen faucet. The L step is the reason her mornings changed, but there's a third letter in the method that addresses something completely different, the biggest spike of your day. Not the morning spike, the post-meal spike. The one that happens after lunch and dinner, when the carbohydrates you just ate hit your bloodstream. And this is where the O in flow comes in. O stands for optimize the pre-meal window. And in my opinion, it's one of the most underutilized strategies in all of diabetes management. Here's the step. 15 minutes before lunch and dinner, drink approximately 150 to 200 milliliters, about 1 small glass, of plain room temperature water. That's it, 1 small glass. 15 minutes before you eat. And here's why it matters. A study published in Obesity found that adults who drank 500 milliliters of water before meals lost significantly more weight and showed better fasting glucose outcomes than those who didn't. Now, that study was focused on weight loss, but the glycemic mechanism is directly relevant to what we're talking about. Pre-meal water gently distends the stomach. It slows gastric emptying, and it reduces the speed at which carbohydrates enter your bloodstream after the meal. A slower glucose rise means your insulin has time to keep pace, and that translates directly to a lower post-meal spike. Think about what that means in practical terms. The 2 biggest glucose spikes of your day happen after lunch and dinner. Those are the spikes that drive up your A1C over time. And you can flatten both of them with a single small glass of water, timed 15 minutes before you eat. This one step, 1 small glass, 15 minutes before your 2 biggest meals, can measurably flatten the blood sugar curve. It's not dramatic, it's not expensive, it's not complicated, and almost nobody does it. Now, here's what I find remarkable about the flow method so far. F addresses the overnight deficit and the dawn phenomenon. L addresses the daytime distribution and blood viscosity. O addresses the post-meal spike. 3 letters, 3 different problems, 3 different mechanisms, all solved with water. But there's one more letter, and this one is different from the others, because it doesn't just address hydration. It addresses something your body needs that plain water can't provide. Something that over half of adults over 60 are deficient in, often without knowing it. And the deficiency is directly linked to insulin resistance, glucose uptake, and blood sugar control. I'm talking about magnesium, and the W in flow. Now, before I tell you what the W step involves, I need you to understand something about magnesium that most people never hear. It's not a supplement you take for your bones. It's not a supplement you take for your muscles. Magnesium is an essential cofactor in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the human body, including glucose uptake and insulin signaling. And here's the number that stopped me when I first read it. A landmark meta-analysis published in Diabetes Care found that for every 100 milligram increase in daily magnesium intake, the risk of type 2 diabetes decreased by approximately 15%. 15%. From a mineral that most of us are walking around deficient in. That's not a marginal effect, that's a meaningful effect, and it's hiding in plain sight. So what does the W step look like? And why does the timing, right before bed, matter more than you might think? That's what we're going to uncover next, and it involves a story about a 76-year-old retired engineer whose spreadsheet changed the way I think about this entire method. The W in flow stands for wind down with magnesium. About 45 minutes to 1 hour before bed, drink a small glass of warm water with 200 milligrams of magnesium glycinate or magnesium citrate, either dissolved in the water or taken alongside it. Now, let me explain why magnesium deserves its own letter. Because this isn't just about hydration anymore. This is about a mineral that your body needs to process glucose at all. Magnesium is an essential cofactor in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the human body, including glucose uptake and insulin signaling. Without adequate magnesium, your cells are less able to respond to insulin. It's like trying to unlock a door with a key that doesn't quite fit. And the deficiency statistics are genuinely alarming. Multiple studies have confirmed that between 50 and 70% of adults over 60 are deficient in magnesium, often without knowing it. Not mildly deficient, clinically deficient. And the symptoms, fatigue, muscle cramps, poor sleep, elevated blood sugar, are so common that they're usually blamed on aging itself. But here's what makes the W step so elegant. It addresses two problems at once. Beyond blood sugar, magnesium taken before sleep supports deeper sleep quality by regulating GABA receptors in the brain, which promote muscle relaxation and neurological calm. Better sleep, as you likely know, directly improves insulin sensitivity the following morning. Think about that feedback loop for a moment. Magnesium improves sleep. Better sleep improves insulin sensitivity. Better insulin sensitivity improves blood sugar. And better blood sugar improves everything. It is one of the most overlooked feedback loops in all of metabolic health. Now, I want to be specific about which form of magnesium to use, because this matters more than people realize. I choose magnesium glycinate or magnesium citrate because both are highly bioavailable forms. Your body can actually use them. Avoid magnesium oxide. It is cheap, and it is poorly absorbed. You'd essentially be flushing most of it down the toilet. The cheapest form on the shelf is the one your body can't use. That's not a bargain, that's a waste. And here's the important safety note. Always confirm magnesium supplementation with your physician, particularly if you have kidney disease, because impaired kidneys may not excrete excess magnesium efficiently. This is one of those cases where the right amount helps, but too much can hurt. Your doctor knows your specific situation. Let them guide you. Now let me tell you about Walter. He was 76 when we started working together. Retired engineer, detail-oriented, precise by nature. He had been managing type 2 diabetes for 8 years, and his A1C had been hovering between 8.1 and 8.4 for 2 consecutive years, despite being on 3 medications. Here's the thing about Walter that made him different. Being an engineer, he had actually kept a hydration log. And when I reviewed it, the numbers were startling. Walter averaged roughly 900 milliliters of total fluid per day. That's less than 4 standard cups. For a 185-pound man, the target should have been closer to 2.6 liters. Walter was chronically, significantly dehydrated. And because his thirst mechanism had dulled with age, he felt perfectly fine. He had no idea. This is the part that still haunts me about this condition. Walter was doing everything right. 3 medications, regular monitoring, a meticulous log, and his body was fighting him every step of the way, not because of his diet, not because of his discipline, but because of a fluid deficit he couldn't feel and didn't know he had. We implemented the flow method together. I walked him through each step, and being the engineer he was, he tracked everything: blood sugar readings, water intake, sleep quality, in a spreadsheet. By the end of week 2, his fasting glucose readings had dropped an average of 17 points. 17 points! From a change in how and when he drank water. Post-meal readings were significantly more stable. No more dramatic spikes into the 200s and 40s that had been appearing regularly after dinner. The curve had flattened. By week 6, he called to tell me his home A1C test was showing a value he hadn't seen in nearly 3 years. The engineer in me is annoyed, he told me, half laughing, because this was hiding in the simplest possible variable the whole time. I overcomplicated everything. That humility, from a man who had been fighting this condition for nearly a decade, moved me deeply. Here was someone who had done everything right, who had trusted his doctors, who had taken his medications faithfully. And the breakthrough wasn't a new drug, it wasn't a new diet, it was water. Now, here's the question you're probably asking yourself right now. How much water is right for me? Because everyone's needs are slightly different. And that's a fair question. So let me give you a reliable baseline formula, the one I use with every senior patient who walks into my practice. Take your body weight in pounds and divide it by 2. That number, in ounces, represents your approximate daily fluid target. A 150-pound person needs roughly 75 ounces, about 9 to 10 standard cups. A 200-pound person needs about 100 ounces, Simple, predictable, and grounded in decades of clinical practice. But here's the caveat that matters. If you take a diuretic medication for blood pressure or heart failure, your needs may be adjusted by your physician. Always defer to their guidance on total fluid volume. Your doctor knows your kidneys, your medications, and your specific situation. This formula is a starting point, not a prescription. And here's the simplest quality check you can do at home. No lab work required. Look at the color of your urine midday. Pale straw yellow, the shade of light lemonade, is ideal. Clear means you're overhydrating. Dark yellow or amber means you're dehydrated. That simple visual check tells you more about your hydration status than most people realize. It's your body's built-in hydration meter, and it's free. Now, before I wrap this up, I want to set realistic expectations, because sustainable improvement is always better than dramatic promises. And I want to tell you exactly what to expect week by week, so you're not discouraged when the change doesn't happen overnight. Because it won't, and that's okay. That's how real change works. Let me walk you through what actually happens when you start this, week by week, so you know exactly what to expect. Week 1. Your body is recalibrating. Expect more frequent bathroom trips. This is normal, and it will ease. Your body is adjusting to a new fluid rhythm, and it needs a few days to find its new balance. Don't let this discourage you. It's a sign the method is working, not a sign it's failing. You may begin to notice slightly more consistent morning glucose readings by the end of the week. Not dramatic, not yet, but consistent. And consistency is the foundation everything else is built on. Weeks 2 to 3. This is where the pattern starts to shift. Blood sugar readings often become more predictable. Post-meal spikes tend to flatten, and energy levels in the afternoon, that dreaded crash, frequently begin to improve as your cells are better hydrated and more receptive to glucose. This is the stage where patients start to believe, because they can feel the difference, not just in the numbers, in their bodies. Week 4 and beyond. If you're tracking A1C or working with your doctor on lab values, this is when you may start to see measurable trends. Not necessarily dramatic drops immediately, but consistent directional improvement. And that consistency, repeated month after month, is what moves the A1C needle. Here's what I hear most often at this stage from patients. I just feel cleaner inside. That's not a clinical term, but I understand exactly what they mean. Proper hydration is the foundation everything else is built on, and when the foundation is solid, everything functions better. Now, before we go any further, a quick but important word. Everything I've shared today works alongside your medical care, not instead of it. Keep taking your medication. Keep seeing your doctor. If you have kidney disease, check with your physician before significantly increasing your water intake. If you're on blood pressure medication or insulin, just monitor how you feel as you make these changes, and flag anything unusual to your care team right away. Simple as that. This is not a replacement for medicine. It's a support system for it, and when used together, they're far more powerful than either one alone. Let me summarize what we've covered today, so you have a clear, actionable reference. Because information you can't act on isn't information, it's entertainment, and this is meant to be used. F. Front load. Warm water with a pinch of sea salt and fresh lemon juice within 10 minutes of waking, before coffee, before anything else. This tackles the overnight deficit and the dawn phenomenon in a single glass. L. Layer. Distribute your fluid intake steadily throughout the day in small amounts. No large volumes all at once. Front load toward morning and early afternoon. Keep a visible bottle and finish it in stages. This keeps your plasma volume stable and your blood flowing freely.